Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Sarah. I grow in a zone 4B, northern Wisconsin. And today we are gonna do a few overwintering projects. So let's start with the dahlias. My understanding when you let dahlias dry is that you want the skin to get, you want them to get dry where the skin is just a little bit wrinkly, so that's like the sugars and energy condensing, kind of like a grape drying up into a raisin. It's very condensed sugars, which is supposed to help them go through the winter in whatever medium you decide to do your saving in. I let mine get a little too dry. So the only one that survived was the Cornell Bronze. And so essentially they look like this. I already cut these off. So they look very sort of dried up and everything like that, but they're still squishy and supple. They're still good, fresh flesh in there, if that makes sense. Just cut this tail off. We don't need that. And they're ready to get packaged. So the other ones, and that's all of the other ones, the Cafe au Laits, the Star Child, so sad, breaking my heart, the Star Child, but this is what this is terrifying. This is some Blair Witch shit right here, okay? This is a terrifying thing to look at. It's hard as a rock. These have no give. They're very hard. It's like you could take someone's eye out. All the rest of the dahlias ended up like this. And so, I mean, I have no use for them unless I want to, you know, terrify small children who are walking past my house in the winter. And I don't have any desire to become the creepy house on the block. So those are gonna go in the compost, sadly. And with the Cornell Bronze, what I did is I cut them so that each tuber has a little bump spot on it. Like, if you can see that, that's the eye. So each one of these tubers has a decent eye. There were others that I didn't take. So you can see this one actually has like a couple places where it could, there, down in here, where it could sprout this spring. I got 5 tubers off of that. And what I'm gonna do, because I do feel like even though these are still supple, I really let these dry out too much. I didn't pay attention. You gotta really pay attention to these things. So because these got so dried out, I am going to just use one method for storing them, and that is plastic wrap. That should keep the moisture that they have there and hopefully not cause any rot. I'll have to check on them. I'll have to set like a reminder for myself, because obviously I couldn't even go a week with drying them and then looking at them. But I'm gonna keep them upstairs here in my front hallway where it doesn't freeze, and it should stay around 40 to 50 degrees in there. And check on them every once in a while to make sure there's no rot. So packing them in plastic wrap is really easy. You just gonna roll it up. So I got a nice long piece here. Just gonna take my first tuber, roll it a couple of times, take my next tuber, roll them together a couple of times, and so on until everybody is all tucked in. I'm gonna give it a little extra And there we go. Nice and tidy, easy to put away now. From everything I've read, Dahlia's tubers like to be stored above freezing, but not too far above like 40 or 50 degrees over the winter. So my front hallway really should be a great spot for this. So dahlias were a fail, but hopefully the Cornell bronze will give us a little bit of redemption come spring. The next project that I'm gonna be sharing with you guys is my calla lilies. So these were the calla lilies that I grew out in the front this year. They are rhizomes that I got from Walmart. I dug these, I have two. I dug these a few weeks back. Calla lilies also, their rhizomes also like to be stored right around 50 degrees. And you can see just how much better shape these are in. I probably should have put the dahlia tubers out in the front hallway too. That's where I put the rest of the stuff that I was getting prepared to overwinter, was out in my front hallway. But I was just afraid it was going to be too cold for the dahlia tubers, and I really should have put them out there because everything else looks really nice and ready to go over winter without issue. So anyways, I trimmed the roots off and I trimmed the foliage off. And so with calla lily rhizomes, super easy. Stick them in a paper bag. They don't need anything too fancy. I will keep checking on them like I do with the dahlia tubers, and make sure they're not getting dried out. If it does seem like they're starting to get dried out, I might just go ahead and plant them, and then I can have them in the house for spring, you know, for early spring flowers in the house if I want. Okay, so that's calla lilies, easy peasy. Clean them. I let them sit for a couple of weeks in their soil. Then I just dusted all that dry soil off this morning, cleaned up the roots, cleaned up the foliage, and now I have them stored in their paper bag. They're going to go in my front hallway, which stays between about 40 and 50 degrees throughout the winter. It's not heated, but it is in my house. It's like it's attached to the house. So the next project is the purple hearts. So purple hearts are pretty hardy, but not to my zone. So I'm a zone 4. And I think that they might even be hardy to like a zone 7 or 6. You can leave these in the ground, but not here in my zone 4. But what I can do is plant these up and put them out again in the front hall and let them go dormant. So then bring them back out in the spring. These, again, what I did when I cleaned the pots out, I just took these, I left their soil on their roots and just took them, I stuck them both in this pot and stuck them out in my front hallway. They've been doing just fine. They're alive. They're, you know, there's a ton of life, huge roots on these things. And what I'm going to do now, after letting them dry out a little bit, is plant them up. I've got some soil. Olive, don't attack the flowers, Olive. She's going to attack those flowers. I've got some soil. I'm going to pot them up. I've got a couple of just cheap pots that I had down in the basement. I'm going to go ahead and pot these up in those and stick these out in the front hallway. I'm going to cut back the foliage. I'm going to cut it back probably, just like give it a little haircut like that. I am going to do the same thing with the fuchsia in this pot. This was in the hanging basket out on the front porch. Fuchsias can occasionally be expensive, so I thought I would try to overwinter this one and then maybe split it out once in the spring and see if I can't get two. But this has been in the front hallway again since I cleaned off the front porch, and I haven't watered it at all. This is very dry. So this has fuchsia, and it also has the creeping Jenny. And so the last project I'm going to be doing is taking cuttings off of the creeping Jenny and and rooting it in some pots and overwintering that as well, so I don't have to buy creeping Jenny next year. So all of these projects are in the interest of saving a little bit of money next year, but also in the interest of just experimenting and seeing if it can be done right. We have all of this stuff, and it sometimes seems such a shame to me that so many things just end up in the compost at the end of the year, and I have to start all over again next year. So this would be actually very exciting to me if I could have success with all of these projects next spring, and it would, you know, save a little bit of money. All right, so let's start with the purple hearts. I'll trim these up. I'm not looking, maybe an inch or two. I'm going to trim them back. Nothing very specific here. I just want to make sure that I get all of the leaves off, and so there's nothing to sort of rot and cause issues in the soil over the winter. Anything that doesn't look like, you know, like this can go. And all of the stems look really healthy. I'm not going to cut any of those back. I think they're fine. I think this is really good. Okay. There's a little. Now this is just, what is this? Some Miracle-Gro moisture controlled potting soil. It's just stuff I had left over from this summer. You know, I'm trying to let these go dormant, so it might be better to use something that doesn't have any like nourishment in it, you know, something that's sterile. But I don't have that. I'm not going to go out and purchase it specifically for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Miracle-Gro. I'm going to give everything a nice watering into their new situations. And then I'm going to put them out in the front hallway and let them dry. And the ones in the pots, I will water maybe once a month, if that, and just a little bit. Just to kind of keep them alive, but not growing until the and I know I'm doing this on my couch. It's too cold to be outside today. It's like, I don't know, about 30 degrees out there, so I'm gonna try really hard not to make too big of a mess. All right, so just get all those roots down in there. Purple heart can be a house plant as well, so I could technically, if you know, put this in with my house plants, but I'm not super great with houseplants, so I don't want to add, I'm really trying to get better at houseplants this winter, and I just don't want to add anything extra to that in case things don't go well, and I don't need extra disappointment. Okay, so there's our first purple heart. All set and ready to get watered and tucked away. So next we'll do the creeping Jenny. So creeping Jenny is very robust and can even be invasive in some areas. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna take a cutting and I'm gonna just strip it gently here. I'm gonna cut right below the node there, and I'm gonna tuck that into, let me get these leaves off too, into the soil, and that should root pretty readily. Now, the way that creeping Jenny roots is along the ground, so roots would grow out of these areas into the ground, and that's how it spreads. Just look for some good, strong, okay. You could use like a rooting powder or even a rooting liquid when doing a cutting like this, but again, creeping Jenny is very hardy, very good spreader. I'm not worried about. So I'm just gonna poke a little hole there, stick it down in, and tuck it in, and then I will, you know, water these in, and these will go on my plant shelf in the kitchen to get a little bit of light. Again, just a little hole with my finger, tucking that down. Okay, and so last but not least is this fuchsia. And like I said, I have already have it sort of going dormant. Basically, that's what you want. You want the fuchsia to go dormant. So I'm gonna cut it back. I'm gonna just leave it in this pot because it's doing just fine. This pot is already dried out, and it's happy as can be in there. It's got 2 decent growth points, so I really think I can get 2 plants out of this next year. And I'm just gonna cut this creeping Jenny back. I'm not even gonna cut it out, I'm just gonna cut it back. Now the creeping Jenny may continue to grow in here, which is fine because I have more than what I just took for cuttings next year. That's fine by me. Just more plants I don't have to pay for. And yeah, so that's easy enough. This will just stay in its pot out in the front hallway, again, just like most of these plants will for the winter. Now this plant hasn't been watered in weeks, and the creeping Jenny too, and it just looks fantastic, honestly. It doesn't look bad at all. The flowers are still really pretty. I love fuchsia. These are, you know, Walmart, nothing fancy. I think I paid, I don't know, maybe $4 a plant this summer. But there are some really beautiful fuchsias at the greenhouses around here every summer, but they are expensive. So I have stayed away from them because, well, for one thing, I'm not particularly great at growing fuchsia. But also, it's just like, well, once it's done, it's done. And I've spent a lot of money on it. I prefer to keep my spending. If I'm gonna spend a lot of money on something, I prefer it be something that I can, that's perennial, and if not, that I feel comfortable going through the process of overwintering. So, all right. Let me do a little bit of cleanup here, and then we'll take a look. All right, here are the finished projects. We have our calla lilies, paper bag, front hallway, between 40 and 50 degrees. We have our Dahlia tubers, Cornell bronze, the only survivors of my drying experiment. Those will go in the front hallway, also between freezing and 50 degrees. The Creeping Jenny cuttings, those are going to go into the kitchen with my other indoor plants to start rooting. This is the purple heart. Those guys are going to get watered in and put back out into the front hallway. And then last but not least, we have the fuchsia, which I have cut back. I'm leaving it in the hanging basket. It will get watered about once a month, and it's going to live out in my front hallway. And then we have Junie. All right, that's all I have for today. So thanks so much for coming and doing these projects with me. Let me know in the comments if you guys are doing any overwintering projects this year. And if not, why? You already spent the money on the plant. It's going to hurt to try and keep it a little bit longer. I say let's do a little bit more experimenting out there. Anyways, I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.